Thank you, Ben. Thank you. And thank you to everyone attending today. Today I decided to share a little history. So welcome to the Data Minute and to the session of SqlPackage, a story with a caveat. My name is Cláudio Silva. I live in Portugal and I work as a SQL Server DBA, and I love PowerShell and automate all the things. So to start, let's go with the story. I had a call with a client that has a database with a little bit more than 300 gigabytes, and this database has a lot of full text search catalogs with a lot of index. And the call was about some slowness, some queries they were doing using full text search that were rather slow, or also doing timeouts. And after giving a double check on the structure on the table, I found that some, or if not all, of the index were not being auto-populated or over the time, which means that they have some specific maintenance times to do that upgrades, and they were not running that over the time. So I suggested to do that and to auto-populate, and for that time being, it worked. So it became again faster. Until one day they had again one call with me, and they were trying to do some maintenance tasks, including some dropping and creation of new full text search. And that was when they start having some errors, saying that it was not possible to do so. And because of that, we opened a case with Microsoft, and after Microsoft double check it, we got the answer that we had some metadata corruption regarding FTS. This was a little bit, let's say, odd, because this was the message that were appearing over the time. And you can imagine you are working on the database and you receive a message saying, hey, maybe your database is not online. Wait a second, but I'm working on it. So how it's not online? So after a back and forth with Microsoft, they found that it seems this database was already manually changed in the past. So maybe some trouble that was enough to do it in that way. And therefore, they said, hey, the best is that you create a new database and you move the data from one side to the other. And yeah, then I went back to my client. I request to put in touch with the vendor of this software to know if they had this before and how they would like to manage this, because let's say for us that are managing a lot of database, it's very hard to understand and to know every single piece of the structure that the vendors have. Just to add here that before we go in that direction, I decided to do a couple of tests with the rebuild, the populate, and with the drops that were not working. And after some time, it seems that none of the operations on the full text search will happen. And therefore, I tried using the DAC connection, user single mode. Sometimes I was able to do one step further, but not ever the solution. So yeah, after talking with them, the proposal solution was indeed the new database. The software vendor said, hey, we sometimes need to move data along, and we normally use the SqlPackage to do so. So if you are okay with that, we should go with that proposal. And I say, yeah, okay, that is great. That's you guys already have some experience with it, and you know your own database, of course, and therefore it will be easier to make use of it, to make it happen. And here it's where it enters the SqlPackage. So maybe it's more well known for some people when we are talking about the DACpack or the backpack, which are two of the things that we can generate with SqlPackage. But in the end, SqlPackage is a command line utility that help us to automate some deployments, some developments for the database. Here, I will just mention two of the tasks or the actions that can be done with it, but there are more ones that you can find. So one of them, and is the one that makes possible to generate the DACPack, is the extract action. So we can extract, and this will be just the schema of the database. And then we can use that and use the publish action to be possible to create on an empty database or on a different database. And in the end, what SqlPackage will do is check the drift between both schemas and make that our source became, or our destination became the same as our source. The other one would be the export, and this one will make possible to generate a backpack, which is in this case the schema and the data together, and we can use the import then to import the data to the database. One note here, if you like PowerShell and if you use DBA tools like I use, also to notice that there is comments to generate the backpack and the backpack with DBA tools, which under the hood is using SqlPackage. So take a look, and if you have questions, just let us know. All right, so now that we have our problem, we have our way to go, I decided to do some tests to make sure that I knew how much time it will be taken to do such a thing. And with 300 gigabytes, I was not expecting to be something to be done in 10 minutes, of course. So what I have done, I splitted these tests into different ones, and I will explain why. So the first one was to restore a copy of the database on a different system to do the tests, and using the action to extract. Then I create a new empty database with no schema or no structure inside, and I try to do the publish of it. Do I have errors? Yes, if I have errors, I need to fix errors. But you think, well, but if you have just export or extract the metadata or the schema from the database, why should I have errors when publishing? So you may have stuff like this. So sometimes, and this is easy to, let's say, to happen, some structures change. Let's say a column disappears from a table, or a column changes its data type, and then a store procedure is using that column in a different way. And because it was not refreshed when you try to compile the store procedure, it will fail, saying that I cannot have this data type. So therefore, if you find the errors, you should come back and extract, fix the errors, extract again until you get that perfect. The second step would be to extract, but now including all the table data, because that way we will bring the 300 gigabytes not only with the structure but also with the data. In the end, is what we need to move from one database to the other. You create the new database, and then you hit the publish. So just to give order of magnitudes, just for the schema, it took around 15 minutes. To get the schema with the data, 4.5 hours. And the good side of it, which is a nice ratio in terms of compression, it took just 30 gigabytes of the disk space. But now, okay, what is the caveat behind it? So I put it run after my lunchtime, and on the next day, I was surprised that after 23 hours, doing a specific task, it fulfilled my transaction log of my TeamDB. Why? So mainly because of some operations that were being run that generate some huge table spools. And I found this because while it was still running, I was running SP with active to understand what is happening behind the scenes. And I found on the execution plan some odd things. So here, the first thing to keep in mind is that SqlPackage does things that are good, like disable constraints, triggers, and re-enable, it disable and re-enable the non-closure index. But what it doesn't is disable indexed, the index of the indexed view. So the indexed views are not disabled, which means that the views are there, materialized. And if you are inserting data on the base tables, you are pre-calculating already these indexed views, which can create a huge amount of work and take much, much longer time to run. Therefore, the workaround that I got at the time was to create a T-SQL script to disable the cluster indexed views. I trigger the publish after the schema being created, and you can check that on this part when the disable index stop, and then we start processing the tables. I run the script on the destination database to disable the cluster index on the views. Therefore, this automatically disable the non-cluster. And does it improved? Yes, it improved because it took just 12.5 hours. And after this being published, now I can run again my script, but to rebuild, to reactivate my index. So key takeaways: if you don't know the database, bring your colleagues or your third-party vendor with you to support you. Test everything. It's also important to have expectations to the client about downtimes. Start small with just the schema. You saw 15 minutes instead of 4 hours, so fail earlier. And now you know for the indexed views can be a problem. Documentation about this is not too much detailed, so it may be other caveats that I'm not aware. And as always, the client for the confirmation. My name is Cláudio Silva. If you have any question, you can contact me later. Thank you for attending.